Hello everyone. Today, Joseph, Sarah, and I will be talking about the language of Olelo, Hawaii. As you can see, we are going to talk about the origins of the language, how it's endangered, the revitalization efforts taking place, and we will end it by explaining some sentence trees. Now, Sarah will start talking about how the Hawaiian language originated.
Thank you, Laura. To introduce Olelo Hawaii, we are going to look at its linguistic family tree. In short, the language belongs to the Eastern Polynesian branch of the Austronesian language family. However, a closer look shows its lineage, much like language in general, is more complex than that. When we look at the diagram to the right, we see that Olelo has been influenced by many of the surrounding islands and countries. Olelo Hawaii is spoken in the Hawaiian and Niihau Islands and has an estimated number of 24,000 speakers as of 2008. The major socio-historic factor that led to the language's endangerment started when the Hawaiian monarchy was overthrown by the United States in 1893. Following in 1896, the outlawing of Olelo being taught as the language of education was a critical hit to the youth learning their native language and instead were taught English. Linguistic substitution of Olelo Hawaii in the English language occurred as authorities enforced English over Hawaiian, going so far as to arrest natives when heard speaking their mother tongue. This systematic oppression led to a steep decline in the numbers of Hawaiian speakers, and parents and grandparents subsequently did not pass on Olelo to later generations. Presently, it is incredibly common for people coming from other US states to move to Hawaii but don't bother to learn Olelo. Instead, just expect Hawaiians to communicate in English. The frustration of the natives losing this critical piece of culture has led to revitalization efforts, which Laura will talk about now.
For Hawaiian, it is very important to take action to try preserve and expand the language. Thankfully, revitalization efforts have already started and they are continuing to happen to this day. The revitalization efforts have started in Hawaii around the 1970s, but it was kind of a fail because no one really understood why people were doing it or the importance of it. The second wave happened in the 1990s, and that was more successful. People started to realize that Hawaiian was becoming even more endangered, so they started to care more about finding ways to keep the language and culture alive. One Hawaiian immersion program that we found is called Aha Punana Leo in Kula Keapuni. They created this program to bring more confidence to the native people of Hawaii. According to Papaikani Ke Anui, Native Hawaiians are among the lowest scoring minorities in the nation on standardized achievement tests. So another hope of the immersion program is to improve the educational status of the students that live in Hawaii. According to a paper by Claire Keiko Martin Townsend, true revitalization of the Hawaiian language involves promoting its use in the broader community. As I mentioned before, there aren't any Hawaiian revitalization programs in any other state, so our group would suggest that more high schools should implement the option of learning Hawaiian. On the next slide, I will continue to talk more in depth about the Hawaiian immersion program because other languages has used that structure because it's very effective. The Hawaiian immersion program structure is very important because it has paved the way to revitalize other languages. Cummings created the immersion model from conducting research about learning languages in 1990. He then proposed a couple of rules for that model. First one is the need to include native language and culture. The second one is culturally relevant and meaningful curriculum strategies. Third one is involvement from the community. And the fourth one is assessment based on students' assets rather than needs. The Hawaiian immersion program structure paved a way for other languages as well. Another language that used that model was Hebrew. However, Hebrew was different because it faced two challenges. There weren't linguistic native speakers, so when the problem started, the teachers had trouble teaching the students because they had trouble with the language as well. Another struggle was that there were new Jewish immigrants that found a nation where different languages were spoken, so it was hard to just concentrate and immerse themselves on just the Hebrew language. Overall, the Hawaiian Immersion Program is very important because it brings revitalization to the Hawaiian language and also other languages around the world as well.
In our first tree, you will see the sentence Lawe ke kumi I na hamana I waho, which translates to the teacher took the students outside. I na hamana is a constituent. Kekumu is the spec IP. The verb lawe moves from the V0 position to I0 to C0. The PP adjunct, iwaho, proves the X-bar theory. Joseph will now go through our next tree.
Our second tree is a sentence that has the features of being interrogative, and also it has a determiner phrase with two determiners. The sentence is Ualilo kapalapala iawai, and there is movement, as is usually the case in Hawaiian, from V to I to the complementizer for ualilo, which is has passed, as well as the determiner phrase indicated by the trace J moves to the spec CP position. In this case, I've decided to analyze the complex determiner phrase with the third person pronoun ia directly modifying y, which is who, the sort of interrogative pronoun. And the rest of the features of the sentence are fairly standard, but it does show how Hawaiian works as an interrogative, how interrogative phrases and determinative phrases work in Hawaiian.
In conclusion, our group hopes that any time you visit a new place, you respect and take time to learn their culture and language. As we've mentioned before, you can see the effects of people going to Hawaii and just speaking English is detrimental and drowns out the natives who are still trying to preserve their language of Olelo Hawaii. So be cautious wherever you travel and just keep in mind it goes a long way to take a little bit out of your day to learn something new. Thank you.